Welcome to Innerji, Tarot Tea Astrology and all things metaphysical. I'm Leslie, the Metaphysical Crone, and today we're going to talk about the new moon in Scorpio and also it being a solar eclipse. Now, the new moon goes exact at 9:47 p.m. That is on Tuesday, the 25th of October, and that is based on the east coast of Australia, daylight savings time. So if you live in a different part of the world, a different time zone, make sure that you check the local time for you if you would like to know that exact moment. Now, the moon always occurs, the new moons, I should say, always occurs when the sun and the moon are next to each other in the sky. And this new moon is also a solar eclipse. So what happens is the moon will come between the earth and the sun, thereby seeming to kind of block the sun from our view. This means that the moon's energy is strong. Now, it's only a partial eclipse, but that doesn't take away the strength of the moon coming between the earth and the sun. So what does it mean? It means the moon is more dominant. Things are more intensified. And it's also about highlighting the emotional part of ourselves because the moon represents our emotions and our instincts. And of course, we are in the sun sign of Scorpio, and this new moon is in Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is fixed water, so it is already a very intense emotional energy. It is also a very private, almost secretive and protective energy as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at what all this means when we bring it together. Now, a new moon generally is all about new beginnings, setting new intentions. And of course, with this new moon in Scorpio, we're going to be looking at those new beginnings and new intentions from our emotional self perspective, diving deep into those shadow side of our emotions, perhaps delving into areas in our heart and in our emotions that perhaps on a day-to-day basis we don't actually acknowledge or want to explore or feel comfortable exploring for that matter. You know, when we think about Scorpio energy of the fixed water, the element is water and the quality is fixed, steady, unchanging. So you could imagine Scorpio a bit like a very deep, dark lake. And the deeper you go, the more intense that water emotional energy feels. So it's about what's hidden under the surface. Let's just say that this isn't exactly what you would call a light-hearted, fun moon. But as with anything in astrology, even the darker energies, the shadow energies, they're an important aspect of who we are and make up the complexity of who we are as human beings. So we just don't want to ignore that part of ourselves. Now, astrologically, when the moon is in Scorpio, it means it's in fall. It means the moon doesn't like being there. That is why this can be an uncomfortable, intense, emotional time. But it does give the opportunity for deep introspection, to really dive deep. As I mentioned, really looking at the shadow self, but looking at our shadow emotions, how we're feeling, our negative emotions, if you would like to call them that. Now, there is another intensity that is added at this full moon. We have 3 planets in the same sign of Scorpio. Sun and moon next to each other, but we also have Venus there, and Venus is also conjunct the sun and the moon, in other words, next to the sun and the moon. Venus is the planet of our love relationships, our romance, our heart, and so again, this intensity that we have with a stellium, with the 3 planets in the one sign, Scorpio being intense and emotional, and being so close together, this really ups the ante on how we're feeling emotionally and how uncomfortable we might be feeling emotionally as well. And it also puts a spotlight on our relationships with our loved ones. And it is an opportunity to look at those relationships, look at it from that deeper perspective. Because the new moon is a time of reflection. It is a time of considering what we feel, what we feel about our relationships, where we feel our relationships are standing at the moment. And to really get to understand that, as I said, these are things that we don't look at, very deeply that often in our busy day-to-day lives. So what does that all mean when we bring it all together? What it means is that you've got an opportunity to look deeper into your emotions, into your emotional self in your relationships than you have done before, at least since the last probably new moon in Scorpio or full moon in Scorpio. The emotions are deep and they're intense. And so this is a good time to not only reflect on what has worked in a relationship, what you feel is working or not working. It's a time to kind of renew that relationship. And when I talk about these love relationships, I also talk about the love relationship to ourselves, accepting and loving ourselves, looking at the foibles and the flaws that we all have and accepting and loving them as much as the good parts about ourselves that we really like. And then, of course, setting new intentions for our relationships with others with whom we have a loving relationship. That could be a romantic relationship, it could be love of family, friends, but looking at all those heartfelt relationships from that deeper perspective and seeing from an emotional angle how we can move forward or spark new beginnings within those relationships. So, despite the intensity, despite this going inward energy that we have for this new moon in Scorpio with the solar eclipse, it's a great opportunity for emotionally deep transformation, for self-growth, to begin anew, but that's only if you choose to do it. So what can support you during this new moon in Scorpio? I'm going to look at some essential oils and then at some crystals that you might like to use within your rituals or just have with you, just to wear an essential oil, burn it in your essential oil burner when you're doing this deep reflection. Or you might like to create a crystal grid or just have the crystals with you. So I'm going to turn around the camera and we're going to start off by creating an essential oil blend for the new moon in Scorpio. Here are my essential oils all laid out and ready to use for this new moon in Scorpio. Now the oils that I've chosen are jasmine, because jasmine also represents moon energy and it also corresponds with Scorpio in terms of love and that deeper love as well. I've also got lemon, and I've chosen lemon also to represent the moon energy, to represent the sun energy, because it's a little bit less intense because of that solar eclipse. I've chosen cold pressed sweet orange to represent and bring in some sun energy to our blend. The other oils I've chosen are Lang Lang for our love, sensuality, because that Scorpio energy is about our sexuality and sensuality as much as it is about just the heart. It's a combination of bringing sexuality and love together in this blend is what I'm aiming for. And the other oil I've chosen is black pepper. Black pepper is a correspondence with the sign of Scorpio, and black pepper just adds a little bit of grounding and also a little bit of spice as well. So those are the 5 oils that I'm going to use. You'll notice I have some crystals around me, and these are the crystals that I've brought in for this new moon in Scorpio as well, and I will be doing that crystal grid as soon as I finish this for you. So I've got rose quartz for some love, gentle love and self-nurturing, because this can be quite an uncomfortable time. I have the black moonstone to represent the new moon. I have golden calcite to represent the sun energy. And I have malachite to represent the earth energy and the growth. I've also brought in, just here on the corner, I've just brought in some rainbow obsidian, which is a fabulous crystal, whether it be rainbow obsidian or obsidian itself, to use from that perspective of gazing at oneself, gazing into the mirror, so to speak, for self-reflection. So let's make the blend. So I've got my trusty amethyst blending bowl that I like to use. I also have my intention spoon, which was made by my beautiful friend Twisted by Mish, who does these amazing crystal twistations using silver wire. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set our intention for this new moon. And perhaps your intention might be something like, I honestly open myself up to taking this time to reflect on my emotional well-being with self, and my emotional relationships with others. So before you actually blend the oils, just take a moment to think about what your intention might be, and maybe just write it down beforehand, or just keep it in your mind as you are putting your energy, because when we blend essential oils, it's not just pouring the essential oils, particularly for ritual purposes or for really, astrological purposes, for magical purposes. It's about putting your intention into the oils as you blend them and work with them. So that's my intention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the moon oils. So I'm going to put in a little bit of lemon. And so I'm going to add 2 drops of lemon just to represent this new moon, as lemon is traditionally represented by it. And then I'm going to add my other new moon blend, which is also a good correspondence for Scorpio, just to take the edge off the intensity. And I'm going to add some jasmine. So just 2 drops of jasmine. And then I'm going to add a bit of spice and a bit of grounding with the black pepper, so that we don't get too carried away with our emotions. So 2 drops of black pepper. And I'm just going to see how it's coming along before I add any more. That's good so far. Now I'm just going to add 1 drop of Lang Lang for love and sensuality and sexuality as part of this new moon in Scorpio, because Scorpio does look at those aspects of ourselves that has that energy. So just 2 drops of Lang Lang went in for that one. And then to represent the sun energy, I'm going to add 2 drops of orange. Oops, 3 went in, so that was meant to be, wasn't it? So all the time that I'm doing this, if I was doing this on my own, I wouldn't be speaking as I am to you. I would have my focused intention on what it is that I want to be able to achieve or to feel or to gain from the blending of these oils. So I'm just going to mix them, and my intention spoon is, as I'm mixing, I am mixing in my intention for this new moon in Scorpio, where I can honestly look in the mirror, deeply reflect on my emotional self, what's working and what isn't, what I want to bring in, and on my relationships, my loving relationships with others, and what I want to begin again with those, maybe what new spark I might like to bring to them. So let's just have a smell of that. Oh, it's interesting. The pepper is quite subtle in here, but quite noticeable. So the pepper isn't overpowering. So what we've got here in terms of the aroma, we've got that little sort of pepper spice smell, which is a little bit of it's almost like an earthy smell. And then we've got the florals of the jasmine and the Lang Lang. And then we've got the fruitiness and the sweetness of the orange. The blend really has come together well. Now, just like a good wine, sometimes when I'm blending and I'm not using it immediately, I will put it in a amber bottle and let it just sit and almost like mature, the way a wine matures in a wine barrel, so that it has time to really blend and interweave. But yeah, I really like that. Now, of course, you can use this in your oil burner and have it as an inhalation, or in your oil diffuser, I should say. If you want to use this for to put on your skin as at your pulse points, for example, maybe over your heart chakra, your sacral chakra, then I recommend that you use a rollerball. This is a blend I made the other day for Beltane. And so you don't want to put undiluted oils directly onto your skin. You need to dilute them. I have a tendency to dilute them in cold pressed sweet almond oil or in jojoba oil. And jojoba is actually a wax, but it's liquid form. So either of those are fine to use. The way I do it is with the empty rollerball. I put the essential oils in first, and then I roll it around to mix the oils. Then I add the vegetable oil. So in this case, it was cold pressed sweet almond oil. And I just fill it to just below the neck of the bottle, because the bottle needs room for the stopper, for the rollerball to go in. That's my little rollerball there. And then I will close it. And while I'm keeping my intention, I will do a thing called succussion, where I just hit it lightly on the base of my hand 100 times. It just gets the energy flowing. It mixes the oils, and it also kind of wakes the energy up with your intention. So that's if you want to make it as a pulse point oil. But 100% straight oil, you can use it in your oil diffuser. So I hope that will be of help to you. Now I'm going to move on, and we'll do some crystals. We'll look at some crystals for this new moon and solar eclipse in Scorpio, and we'll create a crystal grid as well. So here we go. Okay, so I have my area set up to do my crystal grid. I've got my cauldron. I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of that or not. Might not be very clear on camera, but what I've got in the cauldron is some herbs. I've got lady's mantle, which is good for love and beauty and alchemical transformation. We've got chaste tree berry, which is great for women's magic, also for moon magic. And I also have passion flower herbs today that have gone in there, and that is obviously for passion. So for this passion of love for this season of new moon in Scorpio. Now, all of these herbs that I've chosen have a feminine polarity, and they all have the element of water. So that is why I have chosen them. So that's just going to waft that over. And so for my crystal grid, I'm beginning with my black obsidian mirror. And so I'm going to place that, because for this new moon in Scorpio, the intense emotions that I spoke about earlier, this is about our mirror. This is where we reflect back to ourselves. And because we are going deep into the dark depth of emotions, then the black obsidian mirror is really appropriate. Now, because it's all about emotion, and with that Venus conjunction, it's about love and relationships, I'm going to put a rose quartz heart in the middle. Now, you don't have to use huge, big crystals like I do. You can use small tumble stones. In fact, you could use a rhodochrosite, which would do the same thing. And it's actually kind of appropriate with a little bit of black in there as well, going into the darker side. But I've chosen my rose quartz heart as my centerpiece because it's coming from the heart. I've then chosen chrysocolla, this beautiful chrysocolla sphere, to represent the earth energy, where we're coming from, to represent grounding. Because, you know, it is about how we bring things into our practical lives, into our everyday lives. When we are doing this deeper work, how can we apply it back on earth, manifested in our everyday lives? And then I've brought in a honey calcite to represent the sun. I might bring those a little closer together, to represent the sun energy. With this solar eclipse, the sun's energy is more a little bit doused, shall we say, with that moon being between the earth and the sun. So we see the darkening of the moon in front of the sun. So I thought bringing in a little bit of that sun energy. And this also marries up with the cold pressed sweet orange oil that we used in the essential oil blend. And then I've brought in malachite, beautiful piece of malachite. Malachite is associated with the sign of Scorpio because malachite is about transformation, it's healing, but it's quite a confrontational style of healing, quite a confrontational style of actually looking at the Scorpio energy because it aligns with Scorpio's intensity, malachite as a crystal. So that's going at the base. And the other reason I've chosen malachite is it can represent the earth to me, the earth element, and green is the color of growth. And we want to grow from this reflection, move forward with this new beginning of this new moon energy. I then want to bring in Labradorite. Now, this is a beautiful piece. It's raw on the outside. It's a Labradorite seer stone. Of course, Labradorite is the stone of magic. So I'm going to place that just above the heart. And Labradorite also is about protection against any negative psychic energies. So that is always good to have because, you know, the new moon, the energies, the intensity, it can be easy to fall into sort of some negativity and draw in some negative energies that you don't want. So I'm keeping my crystal grid pretty simple for this new moon. Now I'm going to just connect it with some clear quartz. Clear quartz are amplifier stones. Clear quartz amplifies the energy of any other crystals you're using and connects them. So I'm using those to connect my grid. And now that I've done that, because Scorpio is a water energy, I am going to use my water seashell wand. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at the little hidden treasures in there. So it has an amethyst at the top. Sorry about the going out of focus. This is a Larimar. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this wand to connect the crystal grid. So I always start in the middle of my crystal grid and I visualize the white light or the golden light coming from the center of the universe as I think about my intention for this new moon in Scorpio solar eclipse. And I direct that energy coming from the universe down into the center of my crystal grid to my rose quartz heart. And then I take that energy up to my Labradorite to bring me psychic protection. And then I take that energy with my wand to my Obsidian mirror that I will be using for reflection. And then I bring the energy back to the Labradorite, bring it down through the clear quartz, over to the chrysocolla, asking or saying that my intention is whatever the self-reflection reveals to me about my emotional well-being, my emotional self, my emotional relationships with others, that I am able to manifest it moving forward as a new beginning in my everyday life. And then I connect the energy of the crystal grid via the clear quartz down to the malachite, connecting me and grounding me solidly on the earth, but also connecting me in terms of this new manifestation that I choose from my self-reflection, that it is able to grow in a strong and healthy way, bringing transformation. And then I come back to the center of my grid again, focusing on the love of the rose quartz, coming back to the Labradorite, ensuring that we are safe as we do this. And then I follow it down through the clear quartz to the sun energy. And even though the sun's energy is a little bit dimmed with this solar eclipse, we tune into this life-giving, warm source, bringing us the energy we need to make new beginning changes for ourselves when it comes to our emotions, our emotional self, and our relationships with others. And then we bring it down through the clear quartz again, back to the malachite, so that it grows. So we're combining our self-reflection and our intention to manifest it to bring in the energy to make it happen with love so that it continues to grow in a healthy way for us. I do hope this crystal grid has been of interest and been helpful to you. Now, of course, if you don't have all of these crystals, you can substitute other ones. Remember, clear quartz can be used as a substitute for any other crystal. The other crystals you might like to use here, you might like to use a brown crystal. So a brown crystal such as, I'm thinking petrified wood. You might want to use mahogany obsidian here to represent the earth. You could also use red jasper here to represent the earth and grounding. If you don't have any malachite, you could use aventurine here. If you don't have a honey or a golden calcite or a yellow calcite, you could use citrine here to represent the sun. If you don't have any labradorite, you could use something like smoky quartz or black tourmaline as a form of a protection style crystal. So there are many options. There's no one way. So I encourage you, with looking at crystal grids, have a look through your own crystal collection rather than necessarily going out and buying these exact crystals. Look at what you have already and follow your intuition to create the crystal grid that you feel will work for you. Until next time, new moon blessings to you.